All right, welcome back to our little series here on building a game in the Quake engine. So last time we had a situation where we were compiling the Quake engine on our machine, and we had a compressed, packed up version of the game data. We didn't have the game data source, we just had the packed up version, and we were running that in the Quake engine. Now this time we want to work with the unpack version, and we want to start making modifications to the game data. So before we start, let me get rid of this. Before we start, you need to understand that the Quake engine is licensed under what's called GPL2. This is an open source license, which means essentially that if you use the software, it's free. But if you modify it and you choose to distribute it, which you'd be doing if you made a standalone game, you would be, I'm talking about the engine here, you would be obligated to share the source code. It needs to be public. Now, it's a little fuzzy historically. I want to say, as far as the license is concerned, it's not fuzzy, but in practice, what has happened is that these engines based on the Quake engine have become open source over time. I'm talking about the engines used by, well, I don't know. I won't try to name them specifically, but if you refer back to the descendants of the Quake engine, there are some that are now not open source. And that's because the authors or the modifiers of the engine have a kind of legal case that they've modified it so much that it's no longer the original, it's now an original work. And so just know, if you're planning to go down this route and you plan on getting a game to completion and distributing it, then you might be obligated to, you're probably obligated to make your source code open. Maybe that deters you, maybe it doesn't matter. So that applies to the code for the engine, which you would be shipping to your players, but it also applies to the Quake C files that would be part of your game data. That is considered source code. So we'll see an example of what I'm talking about shortly, but basically the engine code and the scripts that are separate from the engine would be obligated to be open source. Things that would not be obligated to be open source would be things like the artwork, the sounds, etc. Those are kind of not typically covered by the license. So just be aware of that. I would not take my word for it. I'm not an expert on these things. Just do your own research and know that you likely do have an obligation if you get to the point where you're distributing your game. So that said, let's go on to the next step. So before, what we had done is we had downloaded the release of LibreQuake release. Let me just go in through our QSS-M folder where we copied this ID1 folder, and we have these pack0 and pack1.pack. These are compressed. I don't want to say compressed. These are like a packaged version of all the game files. That includes the scripts, includes the game logic that tells the enemies how to behave and the weapons how to behave and so on and so forth. And it also includes the map data and everything. It includes everything. So if you have these folders in here, basically the engine doesn't care about anything else in here. But we don't want to work that way. We want to be working with the unpacked, more raw versions of the game files. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to LibreQuake, and we're not going to go to the releases section. We just want the source code. That's going to include QC Source. Inside QC Source, we have these Quake C files. Quake C is like a restricted version of the C language made for Quake game files. I won't get too much into the details, but the short version of the story is that you don't have dynamically sized types of variables in here. If you're familiar with C, you don't have, or C++, you wouldn't have arrays or lists of any kind. You wouldn't have strings, things that are just anything that is dynamically sized. So just know that there are limitations compared to regular C. Now, the authors of Quake felt that this was more than sufficient to make very sophisticated mods to Quake. And even the base version of Quake uses Quake C to define all the behavior associated with, all the game mechanics. So you can do a lot with it, but just know that there's limitations. If you decided in the future, okay, I'm sick of Quake C, I want to move my game logic actually into the engine or into C or C++, you could do that. That's within the realm of possibility. But we're going to work with Quake C for now. So let's go back here. We're going to go back to LibreQuake. We want to download this. You could download zip and extract it like we showed before, as long as you know how to unzip zip files. But just for expediency, I'm going to use GitHub Desktop. Let me open that. I'm going to clone it again. I had it in the past and I moved it. Let's just make sure that it's putting it where I think it's putting it. We're going to go back to documents/GitHub, and you can see here it is. And this is great. It's still working, so nothing's in here yet. Let me go ahead and close out a few things. This is going to take just a moment. So what you should understand is that this QC Source folder, it's full of these Quake C files, and there's a Quake C compiler. Now the Quake C compiler is going to be able to create what's called, what is the name? I'm going to have to reference and double check myself. There's this, well, we won't actually have it yet, but there is a folder, there's a file inside of this pack file, so to speak, called progs.dat. It looks like we're still working. So even after you compile all these Quake C files, they get compiled into something called progs.dat, and this is only a portion of what winds up in this pack file. So if you were to unpack this pack file, which we'll do shortly, you'll see all the various parts, and part of that is the Quake C files compiled into progs.dat. Don't worry if this doesn't feel concrete yet, or if you don't understand yet. So it looks like we're done. Let's go back into our folder here. LibreQuake. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the pack files in here from QSS-M, because we don't want to work with this ID1 folder that we got from the releases section. We want to work with the totally unbuilt, or let's say less built version. So let me go in here. I'm going to copy these pack files, and you want to follow along. You want to copy these pack files. We're going to go back to LibreQuake, which we just downloaded. I'm going to go into LQ1. This is a renamed version of ID1. And we're going to paste. And now we have our pack files. So we want to unpack them over here in LibreQuake. We're not working in QSS-M for the moment. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get a tool that is going to help us work with these pack files. So I've already downloaded this. Let's see here. Let me just make sure you know where to. You'd click this download PakExplorer and you'd get it, and you'd have to unzip it. Now you can go ahead and do that. I've already done it. It is back in my QSS-M folder. I put it, let me double check myself. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know where I put it, so let me go ahead and just download it. We'll put it in LibreQuake for now. Okay, that's fine. Now let's unzip it. This may not be a good permanent home for it, but it's going to do for now. Extract files into LibreQuake. We should get, let's see, where is it? PakExplorer. I'm going to delete the zipped up version. We don't need that anymore. PakExplorer. And here's a program, the one we wanted. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go File, Open. Let's make sure we're in the right place. We want to go to LibreQuake and LQ1, where we copied our pack files. We'll start with pack 0. Open, File, Extract All. Okay. You can see it's telling us that this is the contents, and there's going to be that progs.dat that I mentioned. This is going to be the compiled Quake C files. Remember that this pack file is coming from the released version of LibreQuake. I believe it did it. Let me just redo that for my own sanity, because I forgot if I did it. It didn't really give us much feedback, but I'm going to assume it did it. Now I'm going to open another one. We'll do pack 1, open. You can see slightly different contents. It looks like some of the sounds, there was maps and sound in both, but there's some overlap, but this doesn't have progs.dat. Maybe that's because there's a size limit on these individual pack files. I'm not sure. Either way, let's go extract all, and I guess it just did what it needed to do. It looks like it's going to need a couple seconds to finish up. I'm going to hit OK. Let's go back to LibreQuake. So what do we want to do now? We have this LQ1 file, LQ1 folder that has all the unpacked stuff. Now the Quake engine can read them automatically. It's going to look for the pack files and try to use those if they exist, but otherwise it can use this other stuff. So what should we do here? In what order? We might have to backtrack a little bit, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually delete these pack files now. Now let's go back to LibreQuake and copy LQ1. Now we're going to go back to our QSS-M folder where we have this ID1 folder. We are not interested in this anymore. This is the built version. We're trying to work with the less built version, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And I'm going to paste our LQ1 folder where we've unpacked. It's kind of like a version of that ID1 folder, but it's less packed up. It's less built. So let's rename it ID1, because that's the folder that the Quake engine is automatically going to look for. We could configure it to look for a different folder name, but I don't think that's important right now. Let's go ahead. Let's reassure ourselves we do not have our pack files in here. So we expect that the engine is going to be able to load these. Take my word for it. Let's go ahead and prove that. Opening Visual Studio. I'm going to open a project or solution. Visual Studio. Let's just verify we're in QSS-M. Quake Spasm SLN like we did before. Now, let's see here. If we click on Quake Spasm SDL2, we want to have this play button. Try it again. Let's see if we get the game. Okay, let's just sanity check. It does work here. Great. Okay, we're doing what we were before, but just without the pack file. We've unpacked the pack file. So let me quit out. And we want to go a step further. I mentioned this progs.dat file, which is the output of compiling all of our Quake C. Now, where is the Quake C? We have it. It's in this. It's still back in the LibreQuake folder in QC Source. Let me go ahead and copy QC Source into QSS-M into the ID1 folder. Actually, no. We're going to put it in. We're going to put it next to the ID1 folder. Did I already do this? Let me see. Okay, so it looks like I did this already when I was just preparing the video. So I'm going to delete that QC Source folder and copy it back in. And so here's all our Quake C files. Right now we don't have a tool to compile them. So let's go and find one. So I noticed before, when I was going to PakExplorer, I just entered the URL. This is going to be in the description, but you could just Google PakExplorer and you'd probably find the same thing. Check the video description if you need links. So for the Quake C compiler, here's the link again in the description. Let's go ahead and find this. Downloads. So what we're interested in is this right here, fteqccgui.exe. QCC is the compiler. And for me, I want the Win64 version. Looks like Mac and Android are not supported. So if you're on those systems, you'd probably have to find a different compiler. Linux looks like it is. I want Win64. Maybe you want Win32 based on your system. Refer back to the last episode for information. If you don't know what system you're on, it's probably Win64. So I already have this. Let's see. If you click here, it's going to give you this zip folder. Where did I put it? I probably put it in QSS. Yeah, it's right here. So I'm not going to download it because I already have it, but you will need to download it. Now go to QSS-M. Here it is. I've already unpacked it. You will need to unzip it. Again, you do that with 7-zip. You should know how to do that by now. And you should just have this folder. So inside of here, you're going to have two programs. First one is going to be a command line version that you could use in a terminal. And then there's the GUI version. We'll use the GUI version. It's a little more intuitive for folks who are not used to working on the terminal. But if you were doing it this way, if you know how to work with this one, work with the terminal, I trust you to figure it out. Let's use this one. QSS-M. What are we looking for here? We are looking for our Quake C source folder. So it's looking for something to compile. Again, there's all these Quake C files in here, but what it's looking for is this progs.source folder, or file rather. I'm going to open that, and I'm going to try to compile it. And it says there's an error. Let's see if we can find more information. Output file lq1 progs.dat. This is problematic because it thinks that it's still in the LQ1 folder, but we actually renamed the LQ1 folder to ID1. So let's look at how to fix this. I'm going to go back to Visual Studio. We're in the Solution Explorer. Admittedly, I'm kind of a Visual Studio noob, so the way that I'm going back and forth, I can't access the contents of QC Source from here. So I'm going to go File, Open, Folder. I'm going to use the shortcut. It's good to learn these shortcuts, at least if you're a noob like me and doing what I'm doing. So let's go Control-Shift-Alt-0. We're not opening a solution. we're opening a folder, or sorry, it's not 0, it's O, Control-Shift-Alt-O. GitHub QSS-M, perfect. Excuse me. You can see some things that I opened in the past, but we can kind of close these tabs until, whoops. Let's do it again, just for our own, just so we don't get lost here. What's going on? Open folder, QSS-M, select folder. I would have expected to see the files here. Apologize here. Yeah, so thanks for bearing with me here. We're going to have to do something more specific. File. We'll just open a file. That is all we're doing right now, after all. So I'm going to note to self after this episode, I'm going to make sure that I'm navigating Visual Studio a little better and prepared to go a little faster. So let's go Documents, GitHub, QSS-M, QC Source. We're wanting to open progs.source. Let's open this. So we can see this file is kind of like, you'd call it a manifest file. It's something that kind of tells you about other files. It's kind of like an introduction to this folder. It's like, okay, here's all my Quake C files. But you can see up at the top, there's this section that is telling the compiler where to output things. So I'm going to edit this, and we're going to go ID1, again, ID1, and we're going to hit save. You can see this yellow turn green. And now let's go back to our Quake C compiler. Let's see. I'm going to just hit compile again. It says done 7 warnings, but no errors. So what that means is if I go back to QSS-M, ID1, I'm expecting this progs.dat is the new one that we just built. Judging by the date modified here, I can see that it was the one we just created, but just to be double sure, let's delete it. Make sure that it's not the one that we unpacked from our pack files. Let's go back here and let's recompile. Done. Let's make sure it's still there. Progs.dat. Yep, that's it. So what is this doing? This means that we can actually modify the program now by modifying our Quake C files. So let's just prove that. Let me go to one of our Quake C files. Let's go to client QC. We're going to modify this to see a before and after. Let me go ahead. Well, what I would do is go to your Solution Explorer, open Solutions, and find that QuakeSpasm SDL2 that we were building before to get the game to run, and go ahead and jump. Let's go ahead and modify the jump height. So we are going to modify that. I want you to see what the jump height looks like before. And let me go ahead and do Control F in this file. Search for jump. Here we go. Okay, so client / Quake C is a lot of stuff related to player control. So if I go down here, we're looking for, let's just read this. Assuming you aren't that familiar with C, you're going to have to learn some, obviously, to make some progress here, but just pretending we don't know and we're kind of trying to reason about this. This is a function. It's a kind of set of logic that runs when the player jump is happening. So let's see, if it's saying if there's a flag set called water jump, return, we're kind of going to do nothing. So this is concerned with jumping in the water. If the water level is greater than 2, then we're going to do all this logic. We're not concerned with that really. Let's see. This is saying if flags and on ground. So this exclamation point means not. So it's essentially asking if we're not on the ground, return. Return means like get out of this function. We're going to bail early because it's returning nothing if the jump is released. So you can see there's all this kind of logic saying, look, if we're in any of these situations where we don't want to just jump, like actually change the player's velocity, we're gonna exit early. Now that we're after the part where we're doing all these kind of edge cases or non-standard situations, you can see it's saying self.flags gets self.flags minus FL jump released. Let's see, so this is kind of a way, without looking more in depth, I can't tell you immediately how this is, the details. The way you want to picture this is that the flags is kind of like, picture it as a set of bits, meaning either 0 or 1. And so some of these are going to be flipped on, some are going to be flipped off, and they're going to be like, they're going to kind of tell you about the state that the player is in. And it's kind of, you know, this is just a number, but they're treating this number like it has a bunch of on-off switches, being 0 or 1. And this is kind of the version, the way that Quake C is able to flip them on and off to kind of set the state of the player. That's not that important yet, but we're going to have to know more about this as we keep going. So you can see this section that's actually changing the velocity. 270, I suppose, is the number that represents the player's velocity. I'm going to make it something kind of ridiculous. I'm going to make it 670. So it's like 2 or 3 times the normal jump velocity. What is this if statement that is wrapped around the logic here? QW handles this movement code in engine for client-side prediction. So the Quake engine, there's a version of Quake called Quake World, which is, I believe, online-only version of the game. So the engine is, if the engine is using Quake World, there's going to be different logic for determining things like jump height. There's like extra handling to deal with the fact that there's multiplayer. So the way to think about this is, like if you're running your game, you're playing multiplayer, the game wants to be able to just jump immediately without waiting for the lag associated with talking to the server. So there's what's called the client, which is the code that is running on your machine when you're playing the game multiplayer, and there's the server. So you imagine that everybody in the game has their own client, and they're all sending messages to the server and back and forth and so on. So this isn't really going to be relevant to us, but just if you're curious about this, just know that that's what QW means. And if we save this, we can go back to our compiler here, hit compile. We don't have to reload progs.dat source, apparently. You should be fine just to keep this window open for now. Now let's see. Let's go back. We want to run. I saved this, obviously, before we compiled. You should do the same. Make sure you save. You'll see the green. Let's go open project solution. I'm going to use the shortcut command or Control-Shift-O. And you can see now it's looking for these project files. Visual Studio, QuakeSpasm SLN, open. And we're going back here. Again, I can't see the contents of, let's see. Okay, so that's what was going wrong. go View Solution Explorer. If you're like me and you don't see this, probably you do. It's Control Alt L, where we see our Quake Spasm SDL2. Let's go ahead and we could do build, or we could click the play button. I haven't done build. Let me try this. So I guess build is different than play. Let's hit play. So build just builds. It doesn't build and run. Now let's just check ourselves here. New game. We're expecting our jump height with space to be insane. Yeah. So that should prove to you, okay, look, we are now able to modify the game logic, taking some fall damage here. Anyway, I think this is a huge step forward. We'll probably cut this episode here. I'll add the description here add some details to the video description that should help you find other things you need to download. If you have questions, put them there, of course, and see you in the next one.